But you're only 19, right?
Sure.
30?
Yeah, 30 years old. So, yeah. Yeah, so, anyways, I'm going to do a little recap before I kind of get into the actual main text. Starting off, though, I'll be talking about Matthew chapter 5, intertwining with what Abby spoke about last week, or right kind of around that. But just kind of looking over where we started in Mark, Pastor Al talking about how Mark is a little bit more of kind of the actions of Jesus, not so much of the teachings of Jesus. And I, ironically, never really thought much about that, so clearly I have not digested the books of the Bible in the same manner that he has. But also he's got that, post-hole digger degree, so in theology. Yeah, PhD. But no, I did find that kind of interesting, and it is unique to see that there are different perspectives and kind of different recalls as you look through the Gospels of certain stories. And that's one kind of little point I'm going to talk about today. But with that action plan going along, you've got the start where John baptizes Jesus. Shortly after that, John is captured. By chapter 3, you have the Pharisees starting to plot against Jesus, and a lot of that coming from any true Pharisee who knows the law, they understand that it's, as Pastor Al said, the time for change is coming, and change disrupts us, and it's uncomfortable, but necessary. And so we've got that new covenant that we're seeing kind of begin to be unveiled. So with that, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit as well from N.T. Wright's perspective. Any of us who's been here long enough, we know Pastor Al loves N.T. Wright. He's a big fan of him. But after seeing kind of the perspective and everything, I can appreciate that as well. So N.T. Wright was talking about kind of leading up to this passage in Mark 5, how Jesus in Mark is really doing, or what Mark is focused on, Jesus' healings, and that leads into kind of, or references to Mark chapter 2, verse 17, when Jesus said that he is here for, he's not here for the righteous, he's here for the sinners. And kind of the important key point of that is, N.T. Wright brought up that you've got, kind of classes in the Jewish religion of that day, because you have the Jews that can go to the temple, and those who can go to the temple typically are speaking, or were raised up and trained up in speaking Aramaic and understanding what is believed to be the original text of the Old Testament. Of course, at that time, they didn't have the Old Testament because that was all the text they had. But it was believed that they understood Aramaic and they could read the Bible in its original written language. And there were, there's other clarifying differences, but that being kind of one of the main points. For anybody who was a Greek Jew, they may not fully understand Aramaic, and so they would attend a synagogue. So that was more, along the lines of the language they spoke, things that they could easily understand. And that's another little point. I'm going to kind of talk about similar differences between Aramaic and Greek, though, as well. But when Jesus is doing all these healings, what he's doing is, in that day and time, in the Greek or not, in the Jewish culture, if you were, somewhat of an invalid of any sort, blind, leprosy, anything like that, you were considered unholy, unclean, impure. And with that, you were no longer you weren't just in a different kind of class, you were not even considered kind of a part of it, of the community in a way. So, you think about it, you've got, so you got kind of the Jews that can go to the temple, they're like the elect, group, elites, if you will. Then you got the Greek Jews who are, a little step down, middle class. That's the best way I can kind of think about it. But then you have the people who are unholy and unclean, and for them, they were just kind of left high and dry. People didn't want to really minister to them. People, in the community, they didn't really want to have anything to do with them. So Jesus is coming back, and he's here. Sorry, Jesus is here on earth, and he's healing these people to bring them back into and make them whole, so that they could be, in the right place with the Jewish customs of that time. And that's definitely something I would have never have thought of or drawn out of the text just in my daily Bible reading. I don't think that deep. Not naturally, anyways. So it was kind of unique just to see that perspective coming from N.T. Wright and just being able to understand, we have our culture today, and it's certainly different from other cultures around the world, and certainly different from other cultures, when you look at different generations in different times. That was just kind of a cool tidbit. So I'm going to read in Mark chapter 5. I'm going to start at verse 21, and kind of skip over a little bit with once we get to the woman of the bleeding issue. So I'll end up skipping down to verse 35 here in a minute. So when Jesus, and I have New Living Translation, so if it doesn't correlate, sorry. But when Jesus went back across the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him on the shore. A leader of the local synagogue, whose name was Jairus, I don't know how to properly say that, sorry, whose name was Jairus, came and fell down before him, pleading with him to heal his little daughter. She was about to die. He said in desperation, "Please come and place your hands on her, that she may live." So Jesus went with him, and the crowd thronged behind him. And we'll skip down there to verse 35. And so this is after he's now, healed the lady with the bleeding issue. So while he was still speaking to her, a messenger arrived from Jairus' home with the message, "Your daughter is dead. There's no use in troubling the teacher any further." But Jesus ignored their command and said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just trust me." So we kind of stop right there. An interesting point that you kind of thought back and connected with when Jesus was healing or forgiving the sins of the paralyzed man. It's interesting because if you're in a big crowd and people are, I'm sure, as you talked about last week, they were pressing up against him. I'm pretty sure they probably weren't quiet. Now, obviously, we don't really know whether or not Jairus was right there beside him. What the distance was, but basically, Jesus, whether he heard it or not, he knows. It's just, I don't know. I have a fascination with that. It's like even when he was here on earth, like he knows everything that's going on in the moment, and there's no secrets from Jesus. That's just Jesus and God. You just can't. So don't try. That was just my own little fascination. Anyways, so continuing on there. So don't be afraid and trust me. Then Jesus stopped the crowd and would not let anyone go with him, except Peter, James, and John. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw the commotion and the weeping and the wailing. He went inside and spoke to the people. Why are all of y'all weeping and causing a commotion?" he asked. They responded, he said, "The child isn't dead. She is only asleep." So the crowd laughed at him, but he told them all to go outside. Then he took the girl's father and mother and the 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying. Holding her hand, he said to her, "Get up, little girl." And the girl, oh man, I don't like that my translation didn't say that. Sorry, but I do gotta stop right there, because in the NIV and King James, I didn't realize that my Bible edited that out. It says, it actually says, he originally said, I gotta remember the.
Talitha.
Thank you. Talitha Kuma. Thank you. And that was kind of my interesting little tidbit. There was that is actually in Aramaic. So it was a fascination for me that you are with a synagogue leader who may not understand Aramaic, but yet it's kind of like there are certain words in English and Spanish that correlate pretty easily, and that actually Aramaic to Greek, that actually translates pretty easily. Just like for us, no problem, no problema. Simple translation. Anyways, continuing on there. So it says, get up, little girl." And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. Her parents were absolutely overwhelmed. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone what had happened, and told them to give her something to eat. So you have, again, Jesus is not wanting the people who are witnessing these miracles and these things that Jesus is doing. He doesn't want them to go spread the word, and it's not so much of that he obviously doesn't want people to know good news, because people being raised from the dead is always good news. But it's that he knows that while he has supporters, he also has people that are also plotting against him. And the more that they know, the more that they'll get. He doesn't want them to have too much ammunition. Obviously, not that that's an issue for Jesus, but at the end of the day, you don't want to make it too easy for them, if you will. But with this, with this girl, he says that she's asleep, and kind of looking at what N.T. Wright said and trying to look up some other people. Why is it that Jesus said she is asleep versus being dead? Because obviously Jesus is more than capable of raising someone from the dead, but yet, for whatever reason, he says she's asleep. So, I'm trying to remember, I didn't write down his name. Tim Keller, Dr. Tim Keller, and what he his interpretation of it was is that, whilst for us, people being dead, that's done. I mean, we personally, as human beings, don't have power over the deceased. But for Jesus, the people can be dead, and to him, they're just asleep. He has power over death. And that was Keller's kind of take on that, and it is interesting because we are in fullness, accepting God as our Savior, and He is, through Him we can do all things. Then, in the right situation, I believe God can allow us to do that or work through us and still do that today. Obviously at His choosing. But so you have these parents who, the girl is now awake. She's no longer deceased, no longer asleep, and she's walking around. You've got Jesus says don't tell, but we don't know how many people were at the house when He got there. But they're outside. I can't believe that they just, went home and left. So it's not going to be too long before they know, and of course, somebody's going to tell. People love to talk. I mean, that's how life goes, especially about good news. So, it's interesting that you have Jesus trying to keep things a secret, but it doesn't typically work out. So, while he's on earth, I felt like he can't really keep secrets either. Or the people that are around him can't keep secrets, I should say that. Not that he can, but it's fascinating that you have one thing that also upsets the Pharisees is you have Jesus not only working with Jews as well, Greek Jews, which I didn't really find anything that said that the Pharisees were kind of disrupted by that, or put off. But as Jesus is beginning to, we'll see a little bit later on in the book of Mark, Jesus is also working with healing and preaching to Samaritans, to Gentiles, and other people. And kind of another thing that Nancy Wright commented on that was that you have the Jews being the elect, the Hebrew Jew, the Aramaic Jews, who were the elect class, the elite of not the Christian faith, the Jewish faith. There was kind of a belief that they were the only ones who were supposed to receive, be the chosen people of Israel. But under this new covenant, Jesus is disrupting that and bringing anybody and everybody under that umbrella. So he's saying, we under the law, this is where it was, but I'm now expanding it now that I am here. And so they're put off by that, but Jesus is doing what he's set out to do. He's saying this new covenant is for anybody and everybody who will accept it. And so he's trying to just make everybody aware that it's whether you have a disease, there's no unholiness within God. And those who like the lady who had the bleeding issue, she was believed to be unclean, and anything she touched was to be unclean. But when she touched Jesus, then instead of making him unclean, he purified her. So that was kind of a side note, a little rabbit trail, but that was something that I feel like we don't, and it's hard to fully grasp in this day and age to really understand, we're not back in that time, but yet, if God's still the same today as yesterday, there's no exceptions. We're just living in a different system, a different function of society, but it's still all the same. So, and actually this kind of hit me too when this morning, for whatever reason, that so yesterday when I got off work, I went and sat on top of my camper and read one of my chapters in a book that I'm reading. And my parents called, and for some reason, of all the choices of words, and they asked me what I'm doing, I was like, I'm just sitting on top of my little kingdom here. But this morning, God really just was like, hey, you're a part of that. I'm a part of that expansion. I personally, was obviously not born over in Jerusalem. I'm not part of that, the original elect, Jewish group, but I'm part of that expansion. And what does it matter if I get to heaven and I've got a mansion or I've got a little camper? I mean, I'm in heaven. So what? I don't care what I got. I just want to be there.
Amen.
So it's just kind of interesting the perspective God threw in there this morning. It's like, it's not about getting. We're not trying to. Or our goal should not be to try to get a bigger house. Whatever that's going to look like. But that's a construct we have to work with. But it's not to get a bigger plot of heaven. I mean, the goal is to just be thankful for the fact that God has chosen us and accepted us. And if we're gonna go to one or two places, I don't care if I've got an inch of blade of grass in heaven, or I'd rather have that a lot more than going to hell. So it's just kind of a gratitude for God. We're in the post, obviously. We got the Old and New Testament. We're after Jesus has been on this earth and created that new covenant, and the healing miracles that He can do, raising people from the dead, healing people from leprosy. It's just funny because I feel like I say this because as society, we're all more alike than we realize, but I like to complain about things from time to time. I'm 30 years old and I'm not married. It's like, oh, woe is me. Well, I'm still breathing. I'm still able to run. I ran 2.5 miles yesterday. A little bit sore, but that's okay. But it kind of goes back to as well. I gotta slow down. My mind's getting too many thoughts right now. But it just kind of goes back to Al said 3 weeks ago, I believe. I'm mixing sermons. But when he closed the book and kind of went off on his little tangent, or his little said, tuck your feet in if you don't want to get your toes stepped on. That's how you spend your time. And it's like, well, I'm not really spending my time in places that would allow me to, have the opportunity to meet somebody. But it's like, that's my biggest complaint right now. But so what? I'm a lot healthier than I was 2 years ago. I am debt free. I mean, I'm sitting here living. I'm getting. This is my dream job right here. Like, there's not a whole lot better I can get. I mean, it can be better, but it could definitely be worse. So I'm just grateful for that. So, it's just you look at these different stories that are going on in Mark, and the one thing that I can't see the perspective of is you've got Pharisees who are wanting. They've got their own justification, their own reasons for why they want to stick to the law. And obviously, I've got hindsight's 20/20, but they have their justification, the reason why they don't want things to change. But it's like things are going to be better, so why not want the change? But they can't. I mean, they can't see that. I guess I don't know. So that's the whole reason, or that's one of the main reasons as to why Jesus is not wanting all these people that he's healing. He doesn't want them to tell, because he's trying to. It's not that he doesn't want the people to spread the good news about healings. It's just he doesn't want the Pharisees to catch hold of that. So. I would say, what good news do you have to spread today? And it's, I think it's important for us to share good news with within our community of believers. But at the same time, when you can find that right moment, if you know people who are specifically who are not saved, find ways to kind of share good news with them. That's one thing I've found in the past is that people who are unsaved, when they can see someone who is joyful, just time over time, they know like everybody has stuff going on in their lives. And when they can see somebody who's joyful, just repeatedly, you don't know what seed you're planting in them. So, just remember that. And I'll open up to questions and comments. Yes, ma'am.
I know earlier when you mentioned about having a house and everything, just my opinion. It's really nothing wrong with getting, stuff to like, because I'm like that, so.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I would say, God judges our hearts. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've got my desires too. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd have 6 cars, all plastics. Yeah. But it's why are you wanting it? Are you lusting? Are you coveting after those things? That's where if we pray about it, I mean, God will let us know. Are we justly wanting something? Or are we unjustly desiring things of this world? Because we do still live in the system. I mean, we are. While we are. I don't know if it's necessarily the right way to say it. While we're not, as Christians, bound to the system, we're not accept. We're not. What did I say? We're not like an exception to the rule. I mean, we still have to make money, and we still have to operate within the confines of this earth. So, I'd say just maybe pray about why. Why do you want what you want? That'd be my suggestion.
If you'll notice though, when you get stuff, you'll get that car, and if you don't pay cash for it, you got payments.
Exactly.
In 2 or 3 months, you got those payments, and that car's not as much fun as it was. And even if you can pay cash for stuff, and you get one thing, you're gonna want another. And that's the nature of us. And only God can put that peace in your heart and satisfaction in your heart with what you've got. And, as you get older, I can say this, your priorities change. What's important to you changes. And you don't want as much stuff, and you don't want the same thing. And when you get stuff, you have to maintain it too. It's a job, to keep things up. The more stuff you got, the more obligated you are. And you're not free. God wants us to be free.
That's actually, to go along with that. That's kind of part of the book that I'm reading. That I was reading yesterday. But I started reading. My friend bought me this book as an early birthday present called the Free Time Formula by Jeff Sanders. It's kind of one of those self-help books, if you will. But it was interesting because when Al talked about spending, how we're spending our time. That week was the same chapter, or one of the chapters I read was asking that specifically. And it talked about taking a time log for the week.
I heard. Sorry.
Sorry, but what
I
I was
heard
going to say.
Billy Graham say years and years and years ago. I guess that they were going to that place where he lived when he died. That sort of cabin mountain area. And he said they would go back and forth to this place, and when they would get there, they had to see about the grass, had to see about the lawnmower, they had to do this, had to do that. Just like when Al goes home, he has so much to do to maintain the house.
Yeah.
And they were going up there, and they were maintaining this place that was supposed to be leisure for them. And they would go by this man's house, and he was an older man. He was sitting on the front porch rocking. And he didn't have all that stuff. But he was sitting there rocking, and he looked happy. And Billy Graham's wife, Ruth, said she noticed that, and she called that to his attention. She said, "We're not doing anything, but we're obligated to all this stuff." And she said, and he's at peace. He's sitting over there rocking. He ain't got all this stuff. And he shared that. I thought that was a good analogy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The one thing I was going to say, and finish off my thought there, is that the gentleman, the book is asking, talking about how we spend our time, but you're saying you want more and more and more. Well, what do you want more and more and more of? Because the fact is, it is human nature that we're gonna, whatever we kind of focus on, we're gonna want more of that, more of that, more of that. And so, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but this past week I was just like, I got to get rid of my video games, because for me there are times where I don't play them, but there are times where I get on just a month, and it's just any free second I've got. I mean, that's what I'm doing. It's ridiculous. Anyways, I just turned them in. I was like, I'm done with them. And this week, I have read through. I've spent, I don't know how many hours, but I've read through Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Romans, Acts, and Ephesians. Now on the Bible app. I don't read that fast. So I'll listen. I should say I'm listening. And it's literally, when I went to bed last night, I was just like, dude, I gotta listen some more. Like, I was like, I need to go to sleep, but I gotta keep listening. More chapters. And it's like, it's just, I'm already getting that. Just, that's what I want more of. Instead of playing video games, instead of wasting my time on something that's not even real, it's like, now I want more reading about. And I certainly hope that keeps up. But it's just, yes, you're going to want more of whatever you focus on. I mean, that's human nature. It is. So it's, what are you focused on? What are you desiring to get more of? So, any other comments? But I do like what you say. Because, yeah, it's nice to be able to sit in my camper and I don't have to mow the grass.
Yeah. I watched the movie.
Thanks for...
I watched the movie, and I don't usually watch a movie that I've watched before. I don't, that's not my thing. But yeah, I had watched it years ago, so and I thought, I think I've watched this movie before, and I thought to myself, well, it entertained me for a couple of hours. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
That's what we got to divide up. What do we want to be entertained 24 hours a day, or do we want to try to get close to God?
Yeah.
And what we seek after, that's where, our heart, but, and we need sometimes entertainment. Our brain needs some rest,
Yeah, I didn't quit my Netflix. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, I didn't know it was everything. But yeah, no, it's yeah. We definitely need rest for sure. Yeah. Need a break. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? All right. We'll close in prayer.
Remember to pray for Saran.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Father God, we just come to you right now, and we just thank you for the opportunity again to just focus on your word and just hear what you have in these scriptures, God. And it's so wonderful to be able to kind of see different perspectives and to be enlightened, Lord, on what it is that you have for each one of us. You touch us differently depending on where we are in life. And it's so marvelous to be a part of your work, Lord. So we just ask that you would continue to work on us individually and collectively as a group. And that we would continue to see growth in the church and in the community, Lord. And we just lift up Saran. Right now, she's not doing too well. We don't know what she has, but she just, I'm sure, probably laying in bed and feeling, body pain and aches, Lord. So we just pray that you would just send your healing hand to just touch her mind, touch her physical body, that she would just be lifted up, Lord, and be able to stand up later on today and just do everything like nothing, everything's good and gravy, Lord.
Yes.
And we just thank you for the miracles that you did back then and for the miracles you are still performing today, Lord. And thank you for your loving kindness, God, your mercy, your just righteousness. We just pray all this in your wonderful name. Amen.
Amen.